if I remember where I was before being a full-time stand-up, I'm just like anybody else, just go to work, go home, go to work, go home. I didn't really have much of a social outlet until I like really pursued it. And it went from just doing open mics around here to being able to do open mics in other time zones and meet other people that are like, oh, bro, when are you coming back? You got to come back to this place. Let us know when you're coming. It's very wholesome because it's like I just meet people that have been stuck in their little city or their little town forever. And I get to know them whether for 5 minutes or for the entire day. It gives you perspective.
Nick Bailey, super funny guy. There's a lot to say about him. It's funny. I'm very impressed by the fact that he is able to do stand-up comedy and produce shows here in the Hudson Valley, bringing comedians together. I mean, bringing comedians together in many ways, let's be honest, is like rounding up a bunch of stray cats. It's a very difficult process. But Nick Bailey somehow is able to find the time to produce shows and also be a stand-up comedian himself. It's very interesting and very admirable in many ways. I've always loved comedy, going back to when I was growing up. My dad and I would watch 90s stoner comedies, and it's been just a very big part of my life, and it's something I enjoy. And it's cool just having the opportunity to hang out with Nick. Nick and I are really good friends, and be able to bond over our love of comedy. Comedy is a very great thing. It's really something that allows us to step out of ourselves for a brief period of time and just to enjoy life, just the absurdities of life. So I hope you enjoy this conversation today because it's an interesting look into the world of comedy here in New York State and in the Hudson Valley. And it's a very interesting look into the life of Nick Bailey, who is overall a great guy, very dynamic, and a funny comedian. He's got a lot to offer, and I think he is someone who you're going to be hearing a lot of going forward. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I hope you laugh, because that's really the main point of this. So I hope you have a great day, enjoy this conversation, and let me know what you think of it, all right? Thank you. Nick, I just want to say thank you for being on the podcast today.
Hey, Joe, thank you for having me in this lovely pop-up studio.
Absolutely.
I like it. I actually do like the setup.
I put my heart and soul into it.
And a lot of hair on this backdrop.
It's nothing can be perfect, so I tried. That's all I can say. I tried here. But yeah, I just want to thank you again for being here today. It means a lot. Especially having the podcast here in person. That's cool. I've been doing it over the computer for a little bit. So it's cool that you're here in person today. But yeah, so welcome to the podcast. I wanted to today just basically get started with just general overview of kind of your life. Nothing too intense, but kind of just talk about where you came from, where you're going, and like what makes you you. And I know the big thing about you is you love comedy. Your comedy that's just one part of you, but it really comes to define you in many ways. So I wanted to ask you, before we get into comedy, just want to say, where are you from? I want to ask where you're from. And on top of that, how did you get into comedy?
So I grew up on the streets of Compton, California, and no. I grew up in the teeny tiny town in good old Hudson Valley, Florida, New York, everybody. I have a bit about it, and growing up in my town is just dealing with, like, farms and just very conservative and, believe it or not, very liberal mixed town, because I live in between, like, a few little townships where there's a lot of crazy characters, even up here, as opposed to New York City. So I try to talk about my little town just being very suburbia and all. And I got to get away from it as much as I can because I have a lot of stories to tell about it, and then go down to the places where I do comedy and tell about those places as well. Just making a nice back and forth trip talking about where I grew up.
So, how do you think where you grew up plays a role into like making who you are? Because I know you go down to the city, you go down to New Jersey, you're doing comedy in those areas, but obviously you're from upstate, if you can call this upstate New York right now.
Upstate New York.
So like, compared to a lot of other comedians that are down in the city that are from New Jersey, it kind of makes you unique in a way. Obviously, it's a little bit more rural up here.
A lot of people, probably in the entire United States, if they've never been to New York, people just think New York is just New York City, right?
Yeah.
And they don't know about any of, like, the Adirondacks. They don't know anything about the farms that we have that are just an hour outside the city. They just don't know about this area. It's like any other middle America spot. We got the strip malls. We got our freaking meth heads. We got our delusional people that think, like... I don't know, because I don't know what I was gonna say. But it's the same shit as like any other small town in this country. We're next to an area that has a little bit of crime. We're next to these rich people, but we're within an hour and a half at most of New York City.
Exactly. And so obviously you go down to the city, do comedy. I think the area plays a role in your act slightly. I mean, you've included that in your act before from times I've seen you perform live.
I try to act like a city head as much as I can too, because like if I'm going to be down there, I might as well act like I'm down there, because I can't be the only stick in the mud around just a ton of comics. And a lot of comics that I met, there's a little bit of everybody from everywhere. Like New York City is the melting pot after all, because I met people that came to New York from Nebraska, Iowa, some people from state of Florida, Maryland, and a lot of Boston people. I've definitely met a lot of Massachusetts comics. Like, they got sick of their city, so they wanted to try a new city out.
So, if you could go back, and I mean, this is obviously hypothetical, but would you have preferred to have grown up in the city, or are you happy to have grown up where you are now?
I think I'm happy to grow up where I am, because honestly, I can't visualize myself being like a city head, whatever. Every city person that I met, whether they're a comic or not, everybody's just so mad or they're so sad. It's like, I just got to meet an angry person, or I got to meet a super depressed cynic. And then it's like, comedy is the best part of my day. I'm like, me too. And you're sort of fucking ruining it for some reason. I just got to meet a lot of different people. Like, how we start the question again? Just if I grew up in the city.
Yeah. Would you prefer to grow up down there, or are you happy to grow up where you are now?
I'm happy to grow up where I am now. Like, I sort of lived in the city for a little bit, but it's not full time. Just kind of like a part-time Brooklynite down there. And I tried to like go from mic to mic to mic, or just explore wherever I could. But New York's a hellscape when it comes to traffic and public transit now. So it's like I'd rather be driving around here for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I like my journeys, but there's some parts of it where you get sick of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're a big fan of traveling and stuff too. I know you love like seeing the world and going out there. And you're talking about going to Vegas all the time, going to California.
5 times to be precise.
Yeah, what's that?
5 times.
5 times. All right.
I don't know about part 6, but let's see.
But a lot of the main thing that really unites a lot of what you do when you go down to the city, the really impetus for you to go down there really is the comedy in many ways. I mean, that's kind of like, that's really, would you say comedy has broadened your horizons? Like, it's actually like, since you got involved in comedy, I mean, I could phrase it a different way. Do you think without comedy, you would have traveled and gone all around and met all the different people you've met? Or do you think comedy has enabled you to be able to see the world a little more?
It's definitely enabled me, because if I remember where I was before being a full-time stand-up, I'm just like anybody else, just go to work, go home, go to work, go home. I didn't really have much of a social outlet until I like really pursued it. And it went from just doing open mics around here to being able to do open mics in other time zones and meet other people that are like, oh, bro, when are you coming back? You got to come back to this place. Let us know when you come. It's very wholesome because it's like I just meet people that have been stuck in their little city or their little town forever. And I get to know them whether for 5 minutes or for the entire day. It gives you perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So, kind of getting back to the beginning here, how did you get involved in comedy? Why? It seems like
the first time I ever did like open mic comedy or just like stand up or just like
specifically like what got you interested? Because I mean, I feel like everyone. I mean, I love comedy, but I don't think I would ever get on stage and do it.
Yeah,
like I see it's a lot. I think everyone, in some sense, unless you're a psychopath, loves comedy. But like,
there's plenty of those out there.
That's true. It's true. But why did you love it enough that you went? I mean, it's ballsy to go on stage and actually like do it. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. So like, why?
It's been oversaid, but it's like I always want to make people laugh, and I did. Like I used to watch all these cartoons. Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon just ad-lib shit all the time to people in class, and I just always loved the feeling of making somebody else laugh.
Okay.
When it comes to like stand-up, though, I don't exactly remember like the first like actual stand-up that I might have seen. All I remember is that, and I say this all the time, Daniel Tosh is probably the comic that got me to like really, really watch lots of stand-up and then eventually do it. I remember my parents, they always used to block all the Viacom and CBS channels. So like blocked MTV, blocked E! Network, blocked Comedy Central, everything you could think of. If you have IO, Channel 50. So I remember, I think they kept Comedy Central unblocked sometimes because they watched stuff on there, obviously. They just didn't want us watching all filthy comedy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, cool, I can watch everything I want now, but Tosh.0, that was my show because like I felt sneaky. My dad would like fall asleep on the couch and then just like, oh, he's not gonna wake up, busy. Just turn on the TV, lower the volume, and even if I have to go in the other room, it was a mix of like sketches and stand up and just talking to a live audience while they have like somebody else's content on. But that was just the most exciting thing for me for some reason. But I was looking up Tosh.0 clips on YouTube, and then I see Daniel Tosh Completely Serious. I think it was 2007 or 2008. And I just remember that was the first special I fully watched. I think it was like a good hour. And then I just go down the rabbit hole of looking up Laugh Factory videos, Comedy Store. Honestly, it was just, I was watching all these like icons because it got me to watch like Bobby Lee, Chris Rock, who else? Chappelle. Just a whole bunch of stuff, just random comics like a Brent Ernst at all.
No.
Brent Ernst is a LA comic. He's now a Vegas resident now. I think he just got out of there because of COVID, but he's now on Cobra Kai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's like one of the Ralph Macchio's car dealer buddies or family members, whatever. But it's like, I'm watching this guy stand up from 10 years ago. Now he's on one of the most popular Netflix shows. So it shows like the progress that somebody made. So I wonder, it's like, shit, I see myself right now just at the open mics still in upstate New York doing my city shows. I'm like, where am I going to see myself in 10 years?
Are there any particular specials that stick out to you that you can recall that were like, okay, this is like fundamental? I know you said obviously like Daniel Tosh.
I know 3 of his specials very well, and I got to see him live last year.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm. But specials, there's a ton of Louis C.K. specials. Like, I think the first one I watched, it was called Chewed Up. There's also from like 2008 or 9. He put out Live from the Comedy Store back when I was in college. He just put out a lot of content in the last like 3 years coming out of his like cancel habitat, whatever. A more recent one that I know very well, and I've seen him live, Shane Gillis.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful Dogs, great special, but Live in Austin is just like an unforgettable special because a lot of comics recently were putting a lot of content on YouTube because I think Netflix was cherry picking like for certain agendas and certain like demographics. So it's like, what about all these comics really working for it? So I know Norman's put a special on YouTube. So Gillis did the same. I think Sam Morrell, just a ton of like all the regular Comedy Cellar guys. I got big over the last few years.
It's funny how everything is kind of changing now. Obviously, when we were growing up, and until very recently, the special was the main like showcase piece of comedy that a comedian could aspire for. And now, in many ways, it is. I mean, people obviously, it's almost like putting out an album. It's like it's a big.
I always say that. That's a great observation.
Yeah, but like now, it's almost like people are. It's more so putting out singles, podcasts.
Yeah.
Right? People put out little snippets here and there.
And like reels, definitely. Reels are the singles because it's like, if you don't like this reel, you're probably not going to like all the other stuff. It's like putting out a pop song. Like, that popular joke is that pop song. I was talking about it with someone the other day, actually, like, because it's so vice versa, but almost parallel. Like, you have to watch all this stand-up in the club, see if people like it, and then put out the special. But then it's like you already put out an album and then you go on tour, see what people really think of that live performance.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Would you ever want to put out a special of your own one day? I mean, obviously, how many years have you been doing this so far?
Just over 5. Okay. I thought it was tough shit doing it like a year or two in, like everybody else. I just think the difference between me and everyone else was like, I was actually just a little more pompous than them. Like, oh, I'm just freaking doing it. I'm doing it. A lot of people I know that I started with, they didn't give a shit like 3-4 years into stand-up. Because of the pandemic, a lot of people quit. They either quit or moved somewhere else. They might be doing stand-up elsewhere. But a lot of the guys that I grew with in 2019 into maybe 21, like post-pandemic, yeah, a lot of them just haven't improved, or they quit or moved on. I'm going off the rails now.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
What were we like on to like the beginning though? Like,
would you ever
when I started
special? Like, yeah, so you've been doing it for 5 years. But is this something that, I mean, number one, do you see yourself doing this forever? And number two, if you do, or even if you don't, what's your goals? Well, like, what are your goals when it comes to comedy? Do you have any? You're just doing it for fun? You know, like, do you have a professional goal?
I'm keeping a good balance of it though, because like when it comes to a special, there was a lot of homework I had to do on that. Just like, you have to do it X amount of time and then put out a special and then see if anybody likes it. But I think Rogan said like you should be putting out a special like every 5 to 7 years or something like that. I don't know, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, but gives yourself time to like space things out. But when it comes to someone like me that's not even a decade in, I think I should wait till that decade because I still got a lot of stuff to work on. I only just did very shy of a half hour as of recently. I did 27 and a half minutes back in December. I had fun doing it, but I had a lot that I could have improved on. Looking back at my tape, I'm like seeing the spots where I didn't get any laughs or seeing spots where I forgot to add a certain tag or a punchline or something like that. So I shouldn't be thinking of a special because I think that's just someone thinking like, oh, I'm going to be in a movie someday. It's a little over-ambiguous, you know what I mean?
Have you ever thought about putting out like a greatest hits? Almost like basically a compilation of your performance.
I repeat, I'm not even 10 years into this. I get what you mean, though. It's like that everybody has this pipe dream of just getting on TV somehow, just have their voice and their image to be heard. But that's something I really have to tone down, especially with me, because I was on like maximum overdrive, especially like I said with the open mics. Like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm doing comedy, and it's like thought I was so good. It's like, no, I was shitty 2 years ago, and then very shitty 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I've definitely improved much more now because I would think of something, write it down, and then perform it. I wouldn't physically write the entire thing out on a legal pad or something. I wouldn't go back and make corrections and edits. I thought I was just like, oh, I'm doing it just because I'm doing it. There wasn't any self-awareness, but it's definitely changed now. I remember you said you wanted to talk about like how I balance having fun with it and then business and stuff like that with the goals. So when it comes to goals, in the next year, I want to be able to produce a show in a more legitimate corporate club, whether it's say a charity show or just being able to like host at a Funny Bone or Levity or Improv or something like that. Because I've been doing like the more mom and pop places I've been around for, like Grizzly Pear and Comedy Shop and stuff like that. Comic Strip, and I've done a brunch show at Comedy Shop. No disrespect, but when it comes to goals, yeah, just being able to work in like bigger clubs, being able to do a 1,000-seat theater. I've done a almost 200-seat room before. Haven't done anything more than that. Goals. I guess I don't have any goals if I have to think this much, Joe. Right?
Well, what?
They'll come back to me, but
okay. So I have another question for you then. So we're talking about wanting to do corporate shows. You have all these different goals and different ambitions, and you've done a lot so far already. But going all the way back to the beginning, what was your first show like?
The first show I did, you came to my open mics there, but the first show that I ever did was at Tapped. Tapped is a place over in Middletown, New York, and it's just any other craft brew type place with the wooden tables and the metal chairs and the freaking polygamy everywhere. I don't know. It's just something where you see a lot of fucking hipsters at and a lot of drunk rednecks. But
sure.
The first show I did, that's good you mentioned that, by the way, because I remember I was just excited to be on a show because people just like threw that in your face like, oh, you haven't done a show yet? You got to be on more shows. After the open mics, you got to be on shows. And it was just like, that was pre-programmed into my head. But then when you do it for so long, here's a great example. Like, people don't tell you about good shows and then bad shows. It's like, you just got to do shows and you just got to get stage time, which is important. But then there's moments that really help you grow. Like, you're not going to grow by just doing good shows all the time. It'll show progress, like, oh, people like this, people are laughing at me. But then one of the first terrible fucking shows I've ever had, we did a show, a few of my friends went up to Parksville near Liberty, New York, and it was during COVID. So it was like, we did one back in, I think, June or July, outdoor show, mosquitoes biting everybody. And it was like, just everybody was drunk off their asses. They just wanted to be outside. They didn't care about comedy. They just wanted to be outside and not being told, oh, you must stay in for 2 weeks and then you'll be happy for the rest of 2020. They just wanted to be out. They didn't give a fuck who talked to them. So the first show, my one friend bombs. The second dude I knew moved to California. He bombs. The guy that was producing the show was just doing this motivational speech, and they were just like, okay, where's your jokes? They mixed in some music into the act. My one friend, Aaron Levine.
Right, of course.
Yeah, Aaron didn't even get to go on that night because the producer kept bumping him for the music. So it went from 3 comedy sets to some like instrumental music and then some acoustic folk music. Like maybe 3 hours outside. Aaron didn't have to go up. He left. So he was like, hey, if you're doing that next show with him, good fucking luck. I'm like, and I was a little just whoring for stage time. I'm like, oh, I need to do another show or else I'm not going to be on Disney Plus. Like, fucking. So I hosted this guy's second show, and Joe, I hosted a show for 6 hours. 6 hours. It was from 7 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. Because even though it wasn't all comedy, there was a lot of music and just random shit. Like, I had to keep going up and introduce the next act, make sure the people are still feel like they're welcome. So you fuck all of them. Fuck Sullivan County, New York. It's a nice place. You lived there.
I lived there. It was beautiful.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hosted a gig for 6 hours. My one friend that was on the show, who's not really doing stand-up anymore, he got paid $40, and I got paid $29. He was there for maybe 15 minutes. Left with $40. I was there for 6 hours, got paid $29. Not $30, Joe. $29. He gave me an extra buck. Okay, it was 30. But for the most part, that's what he would just throw out of his pocket. Like, yeah, that's yours. I'm like, seriously? So I left
For 6 hours.
Yeah. One of the things too, I do like a little bit of photography. I took pictures of the whole show. The producer of that show was like, hey, you got to send me all of those later. I just wiped the SD card because I'm that fucking petty about shit like that. So I hit up my friend. I'm like, dude, he fucking paid me $29 and I have to pay for my food and drinks with that shit. And he's like, why didn't you just tell him to put on the tab? I'm like, what tab? He's like, the comics got a food and drink tab. I'm like, wait, so you got free food and I didn't? So I'm like, I like lost lots of money, and I still do. I still lose lots of money in comedy, guys. How much money you get to lose? You about to pay $5 to do open mics all the fucking time. Am I right? The seltzer is the best part of my day, by the way.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that was a gig that I'll never forget because not only was it a crap COVID show, I knew what I was going to get. It was just I was treated like shit by the people there, the producer, and he asked me to come back several times. I think one of those gigs got canceled too, thank goodness. But let me tell you a more recent one that happened. The City Winery, Montgomery.
Yep.
I did a gig there as recent as November, middle of November, probably right before Thanksgiving. This girl, Katie Boyle, she came up from New York City to do a set there. Met her, and she was kind of in her own head, just doing her notes and whatever. I'm like, okay, do not disturb. The room is not even sold out. It's cold in there, too. Not temperature. That would be a very sexual thing that I would... No. It's just cold down there. I can tell the people just are not in a good mood. They're just eating dinner, and they just look pissed off. I'm like, man, there's going to be a bad crowd. Mind you, there was a corporate gig going on upstairs, not a comedy show. There was like all these like big wigs and suits and everything. There was like a couple hundred people sitting upstairs. And I'm like, are they going to come down and watch me talk about my cock for 5 minutes? No. So they are upstairs. I'm dealing with the people downstairs. The producer of this show is like laughing that it's not sold out. That doesn't make me very happy to host because it's like, fuck, am I going to have to address that? And just in my own head, I'm like, okay, it's not a sold out show. Let's get through this as best as we can. I didn't get a single laugh for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, Joe, I've never been suicidal before. I think that was the moment where I'm like, this is going to be your last show. Next time, there won't be a next time.
Yeah.
But I was like, I bombed plenty of times with that show. I'm like, my skin temperature, see, it's very sexual now. I'm like, I can tell that I'm just flushing and I'm just like, I gotta get the fuck off the stage now. So I'm like, guys, I get it. I suck. Let's bring up your first comic. I'm supposed to bring up this one girl, but the producer says to bring him up first. So they fucked up the lineup, and I am apparently responsible for that. So I brought up the wrong person. They both bomb. Katie, she has an opener, so she's having a good set, but the only thing they're laughing at is like drug material. I didn't have any of that. So Katie goes up and she's not even crushing. She's getting the most laughs, good for her, but like I can tell that she's not even enjoying that show. It was just little chuckles, little hesitations. So I just fucking leave. after our set. Just like, thanks for coming out, blah, blah, blah. They're already pissed off. They're angry. It makes me angry. I leave. The producer says, hey, send me your Venmo. You're supposed to get paid. Didn't get paid for 2 months.
Wow. Jesus. So
anyway, before you say anything, like, I'm just,
of course.
Gigs like that will stick with you, and I guess it's good for growth because you don't want shit like that to happen to you again. Makes you remember your own shit a little bit better, because that emotional restraint and frustration, it just gets to you so much where you want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
So performing is one thing. Actually being a comedian like you are, but you take a whole other responsibility on top your art. You take a whole other occupation on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You host, like you were just saying, you host these events. And so what was the first event that you hosted, and how do you decide that you wanted to get into more of the business side of comedy? Because this is a different animal. It's not just like being a comedian is one thing, but actually hosting an event, that's event management.
Like hosting, like I'm on stage, like, hey, how's everybody doing tonight? Or producing, you mean? Like
hosting as in like organizing.
Producing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I'll just say for the hosting part real quick, the first time was at Tapped, and it was for 3 people, not good. The second one I hosted and produced was Hillcrest, rest in peace.
Yeah,
It's one of the first places I got to produce shows at. I think I did 3 there. But then really, really hosting something, when it comes to producing, the first time, Hillcrest. So they let me do like a charity show there. And I think the charity was for a local thing in Warwick. It was like a little autism. I'm not autistic. I just can't remember the name of the company. I feel like a fucking asshole now. It was a small nonprofit that helped children with autism. Not Autism Speaks, but they provide the money for they can do like activities like sports and recreation and stuff like that. Shout out to them, by the way.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like a very small show. I think we only had 20 people at it, and I was dissatisfied with it, but you got to go through that grinds. You got to learn how to have a bad show.
What made it bad?
A lot of people promised they would check it out, and they didn't. They were drinking at a bar a mile up the road instead. So you're so focused on thinking people are going to be there, and they just like let you down. A lot of expectation really lets you down. But when it comes to producing, this is what I wanted to say. I got very spiteful a few years ago because I saw all these people during COVID were somehow getting shows, whether like patio or just like people didn't give a shit doing an indoor show during COVID. I just saw all these people with opportunity, and I'm not getting a lick of it. And if I did, it wasn't really good to begin with. So I just started doing bar shows at Mattingly's. You've been there, right?
Oh yeah,
Florida. In Florida, yeah. Shout out Tom. Good fucking guy. Badass guy. Not gay. Anyway.
Shout out Tom.
So I produced COVID shows there because like people were just itching to get out, not just to drink. People needed like some R&R in their lives again. There wasn't really anything going on. So we somehow packed 60 or 70 people in a small bar during COVID. Very good production. The second one was okay. The third one ended up being a bomb. And I sort of took a little break from it. I took a break from it because a lot of people were in my DMs like, you got to book me, man. You got to book me. So I think people like me. No, they just want my fucking stage time. I produced a third show at Hillcrest, and my headliner didn't show up. They told me not to take money at the door until 8 o'clock, but we had to start the show at 7:30. It was just a lot of restraints. So I had to go through all these annoying mental obstacles in order to just like know not to give a fuck and really care about the next. Does that make sense? Not giving a fuck, but also caring?
I can see that.
Because there was a lot of stuff Like, not, I shouldn't give a fuck about if people show up or not. I just have to establish a deal with a venue. Like, hey, can you make sure people know that the show is going to happen tonight? I want to be sure that this goes well so I can bring you business for my business. I really didn't get a great production until we did that show with Eagle, the one that you came to.
Pine Island.
Yeah. Because I was doing some pop-up shows here and there, just a lot of bar gigs. I'm grateful for the bar gigs because I had to evolve somehow. I couldn't just get anything thrown into my lap like that. I just remember I went from doing like 40, 50, 60 bar shows, 50-person bar shows of people that didn't give a shit, to somehow having 200-something people probably on a lawn outside, and it made my fucking mania go crazy, dude. I felt like fucking the serotonin was kicking in, and I felt good. I felt good about it. Because everything else I was just feeling like very shitty about. Like, where's this going to lead next? So what do you say that was the best show you ever produced? Or what was I have a lot of great productions.
Yeah, what's the highlight? If you had to, is there anyone that stands out where you're like, this was perfect? Is there anything in particular?
I don't want to say perfect, because to each their own. There's always that, like, there's one little highlight to each one. I like to say one, and it was about a year ago now, this place that I had right in Florida is called the Shepherd's Eye Brewery. You remember during COVID, everybody was starting to try, like, their own little Etsy business or their own brewery. Like, it just popped up out of nowhere. I didn't even know this place was in my town. The first show I did was just a test run. It was a pretty good show. The second one I did, nobody bombed on that show. So that was like a show where there was no flaws to it. That one will stick with me, and they shut their doors 2 months after we had that show. Unexpectedly, I'm not entirely sure why. Then I picked up the slack from there. I think I've done shows on my own. I've gotten 150 people to come to, where the ticket sales the previous day were like 0. And then the next day, 150, just like that. That's one thing when it comes to producing, too. Certain places, you really got to be pushing your advertising and your marketing, because your pre-sales could go by pretty quickly. Sometimes you don't get the ticket sales until the very night of. Because I had Eagle on another city show recently, President's Day weekends. I had 6 tickets sold at 12 p.m. the day of. I'm freaking out. I'm like, I'm going to quit comedy. I hate myself. I was never funny to begin with. I hate money. It's not real. By 6 p.m., it's like, dude, you have 60 tickets sold. I'm like,
I love money. Yeah. You're all about money now.
And I think that was the show where I made the most money in the city, too. It's tough because a lot of comics they'll do spots for like a fucking Bud Light. Some will do for like $5. And I think that's not really a lot. That's like their train ticket home. They take MTA, whatever. But I think, that show, I think I made like $300 something for myself. I think I made like technically 4 something, but I got to split that amongst comics. I had people bark tickets. Barking is right.
No.
It's like they stand on the street corner like, oh, we got a show over here. Oh, come on. So they're selling the tickets for me.
Yes. Okay.
And that's a big help, because some people just spur of the moment are like, oh, there's a show here. We have nothing else to do. Then I have other people that they'll hook me up with a show, or just like they'll help me get information about something. It's always information, I think, is the most useful thing in stand-up. Not just telling jokes, not just selling tickets. Information, because I want to know who is the person that can help me get to what I want and need, and who's the people that I should fucking steer clear from. I'm going to learn a lesson along the way, whether it's good or bad, but there's situations that I don't want to put myself in again, where I'm going to be digging myself my own grave.
So, what were some of those kinds of situations where you're like, okay, I don't want to, like, you don't want to put you were just saying, you don't want to put yourself in those kinds of situations again. What kind of situations, did you feel like like got fucked over in certain situations?
Oh, I still sometimes.
Okay, gotcha. Like, what is the dynamics behind that? It's just like,
Well, I told you the Sullivan County one. I told you the City Winery one. Like, I'm trying to think of one where I got like, give you like could you give me like a better example so I can give my example? Like, fucked over, like.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking in particular, like with people, or maybe some people that are comedians that you otherwise would have thought were friendly, but they turned out to be that they were like were out for themselves and didn't care about like like didn't even care about like the production. I mean, you were talking about before how there's some people that didn't even show up your shows that you're producing.
Well, that happens more. Should I say uncommon? It's more uncommon.
Okay.
Is that the right thing to say?
It doesn't happen that often. Yeah.
Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm stupid. I guess the autism is there. No, but it's very common because people double book themselves, but then there's people that are very selfish. Like, I remember a show I did at Penning's in Warwick last year, big cidery. I think we got 100 people in the room. Someone told me just the day before their pet got sick, so they couldn't come to the show. And then the next day, they were doing 3 spots in New York City. I'm like, why did you say yes to begin with? It's shit like that. But then that's one thing that fucks me over. But I shouldn't care about, because it's like, wait, that means I could get a little more cash in my pocket, or just book someone else. That's easy. I just get a little too much in my head sometimes because I expect shit to pass with flying colors and everything. But there'll be disappointing thing A, B, and C, and you're not going to expect it until it happens.
I got you. How do your family and friends feel about you doing comedy? Is this something?
I'm glad you fucking asked that.
Yeah.
Guess what? My parents just came to their first show of mine this year.
Okay.
And my 5 years of doing stand-up, they finally came to a show. My cousins have seen me do it. My oldest brother's seen me do it. Like, watching my clips on the internet doesn't count. Because just like, you need that organic experience. So my parents bought tickets to the show. I just checked my Eventbrite and it says they bought tickets. What the fuck? So my mom tried to play it off like, I think we're just gonna get dinner tonight. I'm like, oh, okay. Wink, nudge. So then I see them come through the doors at this brewery that I'm doing my show at, and I'm like, hey, what's up? They're like, we were going to be here, weren't you? I'm like, yeah, that's the power of the freaking internet, Mom. When you put in your credit card information, you can see it too. Yeah. So that one helped me grow, actually, because
good.
I didn't do like necessarily a clean set, but I had to clean up my act a little bit because like I have a filthy mouth most of the time, bitches. So one thing I noticed looking back at my tapes, I did curse a lot more than I should, as if it were a comma in a sentence. So, especially with my parents being there, I had to tone it down a little bit. I wasn't exactly myself until I got on the stage, and I had one of the best sets that night.
Nice.
They said they loved it too. I think they were more impressed by the fact that I was able to gather 50 strangers in a room to watch a bunch of randoms do comedy.
Okay, you made a lot of friends through comedy.
Mm-hmm.
What about your friends before comedy? Are they...
I don't even know who the hell you are.
Me?
Anyway.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that your friends that you meet before comedy, are they also as supportive, or do you feel like you're I guess you could say you're like your best bros, your best friends, or whatever, they're mainly involved in the comedy world now, or do you still have
like non-comic friends you're talking about, or like...
comic friends? Do you still
well, what I want to say about that is anybody that I went to high school with, anybody that I went to college with, old co-workers from ShopRite or just wherever, if those people that said they have come to my shows and have, I appreciate the living hell out of you. Those who keep saying that they'd like to see me someday and haven't for the past 5 years, I want you to dig your own grave now with... I don't want you to dig it with a shovel. I just want you to get like a spork. just any type of spork. It could be made by Dixie. You could go down to the Dollar Tree and get one. I want you to dig a nice, shallow hole right now and then just collapse from all the hard work that you did digging your own grave. Don't come to my shows. What was your question again?
Wow.
It got very sentimental there, didn't it?
That's no.
That's called acting.
Well, I mean, your friends that you made before comedy, do they come out and see you?
I've had a friend. I'm such a prick. I've had friends come to certain shows of mine, and it meant a lot. Like, I used to do these things called bringer shows, hence the name. Bring people, you get your stage time. You've been to one of them, actually. My first bringer show at Broadway Comedy Club. It's like, there's producers out there, bringer producers, mind you, that if you don't bring X amount of people, then you don't get your time. You're fired. You're never going to work in this club. You're never going to get at Madison Square Garden. And then it's like, there's still a Broadway Comedy Club with me for some reason. But those moments meant a lot because I know those shows are sort of like, those are like for grifters or whatever, and for people desperate for stage time. I've done 5 bringer shows, by the way. Those moments meant a lot because it actually shows who was going to be there for me. Yeah, it went from like doing that basement show just before Christmas in 2019, mind you.
Yeah.
Then I did bringer shows where Mark Normand is sort of co-headlining that show. And I get to talk to him for a brief moment, does his set, then he dips. And it's like, shit, it's like you're seeing a freaking unicorn or something. He's like, shit, am I going to get this moment again? Because those moments of, it's like, oh, shit, I couldn't have done this with my friends, literally, because they had to be here to watch it. I went from doing, and I had to network at those bringer shows too, because people are doing this just to be like, I got 100 views on YouTube. I meet people that bring me to that next bringer show, or this producer, or this friend's. Just, it meant a lot, but I had to take a step back from doing that too.
When it comes to these kinds of shows, do you feel under pressure?
Oh, especially, yeah, because you have to. They really throw it in your face. If you don't bring these people, you're not going to get your time. And I only had like one bad experience, 2 times actually. The first time I had somebody, they were like, oh, I'm sick, I can't make it to your show. So I had 5 out of 6 that I was supposed to bring. But the producer of the show just had a fucking gallbladder surgery. So he was like, I don't fucking care, just do your time. So I'm like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Because they're very stingy about that. Like, if you don't bring, then you're not going to ever do this club ever again. They're just liars, though. The other one, the dude doesn't even remember me. I was supposed to do a show at Stand Up New York. I was supposed to do a bringer back in July, and all my people bailed out the day of, and that was my biggest headache because I'm just coming out of the woodwork to random people like, hey, how you been? You want to come to my show to watch me bomb? No. So I emailed the booker or the producer of that show. I said, I apologize, but I want to tell you now before the day of that I can't bring anybody. And then he threatens me like, don't ever do any of my shows or my mics ever again. I went to like 3 of his mics right after. He didn't remember who I was. Because those people deal with hundreds of people on a daily basis.
Sure. I don't know if he wasn't a producer, but what's kind of funny is the time that we were in Beacon and I saw you at that bar arcade.
I knew you were going to tell me this. Freaking quote unquote Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. So there was a guy that...
Sorry, I'm just checking this real quick.
Of course, yeah. There was a guy that said he was from Saturday Night Live,
yes.
But he was...
Just some drunk reason.
Yeah, piss drunk, basically. And he kept on interrupting your set, and it was...
very chaotic.
Yeah, it was very chaotic. It was really, like, cringeworthy.
I didn't even feel bad for, like, just what was happening at all. The only person that I felt bad for was Kevin Ludlow, my friend and producer of that show at the Cade, because that was his first production, and I don't think he was a year into stand-up. So he was probably like half a year into stand-up, and then went right into producing, but he does a fucking good job. And that was his first show, sold it out. He had the same panic switch that I did. Like, I didn't sell any tickets. And then he just walked in and I had like 75 people, like in an hour, mind you. Like, I felt bad because that moment of this dude heckling, and I'm just like doing my very best to like treat the situation well, because I'm trying not to flip out and cause a scene. Because I've seen videos of like people throwing like bottles at comics and just like people trying to like jump the stage or whatever.
Well, remind me, what was he saying in particular? Like, do you remember exactly what he was talking about?
I remember the very first interaction wasn't even with me. It was with two previous comics, Michael and Luke. Mike, I think he was better than me at that show, but I could tell like that dude was like back and forth with him a couple times. And then Luke went up, and he's more of a crowd work guy, but then he was just really getting into his last few minutes. You want to deal with someone for like, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute, unless you're a crowd work comic. But then it came to me. This dude was going out of his way. Just every single bit that I did, he had to throw his voice in there somehow. So there's an amusement park in Goshen, Legoland. So I said like, so I grew up in the Hudson Valley, guys. And he goes, Legoland. So I'm like, sir, I had a crappy haircut. So I'm like, sir, your fade is worse than mine right now. Can you just shut the fuck up with whatever you have? I'm like,
that's right. Yeah.
I got a good reaction from that. People are like, oh, he's handling himself well. But then, honestly, I was running out of steam toward the very end. I'm telling my stories and my jokes and stuff. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was just like, he's just trying to give himself the time of day. I'm like, so I went to the store the other day. He's like, oh, I did too. And just something dumb as fuck. So I get off stage and he follows me. Not on the stage, mind you, like a set. He literally physically gets out of his chair and follows me to the exit door as I'm talking to the other comics. And then he goes, I know Lorne Michaels from Saturday Night Live. And he tried to just spin this off as like, I'm never going to make it in show business. And I'm like, I'm more worried if this guy's going to fucking murder me in the parking lot later, because what he did was very fucking weird. And then he just goes to take a piss. I'm like, I got to get some air real quick. Yeah. I go back in. He's gone. I'm like, what the hell happened? He's like, oh, he started being racist to Michael. Shout out Michael. All he needed was a little racism to kick that guy out. But literally, I guess he was like saying slurs and shit to him after the show where they had to like kick him out. So Kevin, his wife, and a few other audience members, they're like, oh, Joy, you did your best. Did good. Hey, we're going to go over to the other bars. You want to join? I'm like, I'm burnt tonight, man, but thank you. And thank you for showing up. Kevin goes over to the bar across the street. That heckler is there. And he's like waiting for like either me or them. I swear.
I never knew this.
Oh, no?
I never knew this bar.
Because right across from the barcade is the Roosevelt. It's like, I think it's mostly a gay bar. They do a lot of gay events there. No, but so they go over there to like have a little like post show celebration, whatever. It's like, oh my god, they did a good show. And the dude, I think he's like yelling at Kevin again already. Is like, as soon as he sees him, he just lights up and starts cursing at him and calls him unprofessional. And like, so they kick him out of that bar. The heckler, they kick him out. God knows where he is now, but there was such a weird moment for us all where it's like, you're not going to be able to deal with hecklers flawlessly. You're going to get people like that, or you're going to get people that like just shut up right after they yell at you.
Yeah.
That was just such a strange moment.
Yeah. But I know you've been all over. You do a lot of comedy down in the city. I mean, you've gone you've gone to Austin. I mean, we could talk about that too. So are there any other strange kind of encounters that you've had with other like hecklers or people that were just like kind of like odd individuals? Or is that one like the big one that stands out? Or
I think that's the big one that stands out. Every other heckle has been like an obnoxious laugh or just someone repeating something that I just said. Because like one show I did at St. Mark's a little while ago, this one lady was just like she was the one in the corner that would just laugh at, oh, so I went to the store today. I go to the store a lot, by the way, guys. Not the Comedy Store, but from Walmart. So I went to the store the other day. What's up with that? I was in the middle of a sentence, and then she's just like, oh my gosh, Brittany did the same thing. She's just talking about her friend that nobody knows or cares about. So I was like, yes, thank you, chick with the contagious laughter. We all needed to know about your friend. It's just like, stuff like that just like comes and goes.
Sure.
What were we on about? Like,
No, just like, how do you handle hecklers?
well, you have to show that the most important person in the room is the person on stage at that moment. Like, I don't understand why somebody that is watching, let's just say even a famous person, like say someone went to go see Chappelle or Louis C.K. is like, why are you trying to be the voice of reason in this theater right now? Nobody paid to see you. Somebody paid to see this guy. Somebody paid to see a shitty comic do his shitty ass job.
Yeah.
Why are you the one speaking of the 100-something people in this room?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just do it the best you can. One thing that someone told me is like, ask them a ton of questions until it hits. Even if it doesn't. So like, you can ask them a ton of questions. You might have like old tag or a punchline from a previous joke. Just keep recycling it. And then if it doesn't work, just say something like, man, you are boring as fuck. It's just like, I tried to find all the interesting things about you, but there's just eternally nothing there.
Yeah.
Like this podcast. Who said that?
Whoa.
Yeah. Slow burn.
I'm just going to ignore that one.
This is a great podcast.
Thank you.
But, yeah. Funny you mentioned Austin before, because when I took like a multi-state trip months ago, I went from Austin to Los Angeles to Vegas, unexpectedly to Orlando for a layover, and then home.
Hi.
That trip taught me a lot of stuff, like a lot about culture. So I tried to go to Austin, Texas on a Monday afternoon, because that's when they do the Kill Tony show. I thought I was just going to be like one out of 50 people. It was 300 people waiting to sign up for their spot. And they only pick, 12 people? They already have their house comics to do time, and then just amateurs to go up in between.
Yeah.
And I thought like, I'll get picked. I'm just like waiting and waiting. It's like the American Idol of comedy, because you do have a lot of talented people. You see at the open mics, like, oh shit, I hope this guy goes up, but doesn't.
Do you remember, sorry not to cut you off, but do you remember who was on the panel for Kill Tony that particular night?
I was just so disappointed I didn't watch that. So
Okay.
I do remember they sort of like just cherry picked a couple of girls out, I think, because maybe one or two girls, I'm not sure, because they were like, oh shit, we haven't had a woman on the show yet. And I get they try to make it a little diverse, but it's like, shit, they funny though? I don't know. We'll see. When we get upstage. But yeah, I just remember, so Joe Rogan's mothership is on 6th Street. There's a ton of bars. It's like Bourbon Street. That's where all the partying is happening. Right next to the mothership is a place called the Shakespeare, like 2-floor bar. Upstairs is like barcade and stuff like that. Music on the other side of the street. But you go to the Shakespeare, you sign up for Kill Tony, and then they're like, all right, we're going to do our bucket mic. So you do 1 minute, just 1 minute, to see if it prepares you for getting on the show if you get called. But also, think there's 100 people up there. Will you be in that 60-person bracket out of 100 people to do that minute of time and just bomb after bomb after bomb? You have to watch 60 comics, and you're just like, I don't want to listen to other comedians anymore. It's like, when you have to go through all that in such short time.
Yeah.
Because when you go to an open mic, you're watching, a dozen comics. I'm like sitting through 60, and all these people are like, my mom hates me, I'm fat, I'm gay, you guys are retarded if you don't laugh. I'm like, you sit through dozens of that in order. It taught me a lot about like the culture, though. It's like, since Rogan moved all the LA people there and all the other big wigs moved there, I think like Elon might have moved to Texas.
Yes. Yep.
I just know a lot of celebrities that moved back to Texas, like from LA or New York or whatever. But what it taught me is that when people are just sick of where their cesspools are, they will go and maybe start a new cesspool. And they have a lot of culture there. Great food, great music, great comedy now with everything going on. But yeah, it's just a new breeding ground, really.
So how do you think Austin compares to New York comedy scenes?
Like I said, there's a lot of delusion. Like I said, it's the American Idol of comedy because, like I said, there's going to be these terrible comics, but you're going to have all these great people that are like, oh shit, how'd this guy not get on stage? And you're like, is it rigged? Not saying Captonia is rigged. Could be rigged. I don't know. Life is rigged. But it feels like you're in Hollywood because, like we said before, with comparing an album and a special, it's like when it comes to the Austin scene, I think it's the new Hollywood because everybody's like, I'm going to be famous if I go here. Maybe if I just stick around long enough. Like, I think you just got to know the right people, which is what you hear about getting in the movies or on TV or in this industry and that.
So kind of taking a little bit of a departure, how would you describe your kind of comedy? I know everyone's got their own particular kind of style. I mean, we're talking about how like you respond to hecklers, and there's like obviously everyone like develops their own act.
Yeah.
What is your act like? If you had to describe it, is there any particular like do you like to do crowd work? Is there any particular?
I am not a crowd worker.
You don't like that? Okay.
I throw something that I can into my bits. Like I try to like pick someone out and make them part of a certain joke. But you really got to be dedicated to crowd work. I'm not like Matt Rife, like where he is now, nor am I like. I'm just not that conversational when it comes to like something like this right now. On stage, I can't talk to someone for more than a minute without like fucking up. What's funny when it comes to like my voice, I still don't exactly know where my voice is. Even though I talk about suburbia, small town, this, New York, that, I'm trying to figure out what exactly I want to present to people in a story or in a bit. My act, my little act. A lot of people have told me in the past couple of years that I'm a barstool comic, like Barstool Sports. And I'm not a jock. I've never been a jock. I like watching some basketball, football, UFC, but I've never been like really dead set into like that sports universe. But Barstool now is just viral TikToks that they post. Yeah. Kind of like is a word Tosh.0 or ridiculousness. So I'm like, how the hell am I a Barstool guy? Is it my appearance? Is it like the way that I talk? Is it assumed? I'm not sure. Like I get half of my news from Barstool now, but like I can't just see myself like a certain brand. Like I've heard of like the freaking alt-right comics and the liberal left, this, that. Like I don't know where I am right now until someone really tells me. So like I get the Barstool thing. What do you think? Like when you see me, because you've seen me and my progress over 5 years. So.
Yeah. It's a good question. So where like, I feel like you have a lot of your comedy references a lot of cultural moments. And I know that all comedy in a way is kind of like storytelling, but I would say that your kind of comedy, if I had to put a label on it, is almost like an observational kind of cultural commentary comedy. Yeah.
Is there like a specific name though, or
maybe that's what it might be, like kind of like cultural commentary? Because I mean, you have a lot of references that.
I just hope I don't sound like a newscaster or anything.
No, not in a sense like that. Like a newscaster would be objective. Well, you'd want them to like be non-biased, like kind of like objective, but you're more
non-biased in the news, Joe.
I know you'd want them to be, but I think you're more, like cultural commentary, like an obviously very like opinionated. I mean, comedy is supposed to be opinionated. That's what makes it funny.
Yeah.
But that's the label I would put on it, I think. Yeah.
I'd agree on that. There's some stuff that I can't just like, I can't look at 12 news stories and write a joke about each one. It's like, of all of them, I can only write one or two. Because I can think of something right off the bat. Like, my one joke, like, the girl that shot herself in the pussy with her gun. Like, that is a Barstool News article that I read, and I still do. And I made it some stupid, cheap, one-lined joke back then. But then I put the Alec Baldwin line in that joke. I thought I was going to do that for a couple of months. I've been doing that joke for probably about a little bit more than 2 years now, I think. I mean, when did he kill that girl? I don't know, but it's a moment like that it's observational, because it's like, people still talk about that movie. Like, hey, is Baldwin going to put this movie out still? Is it still in production? Or they wrap it? And it's like, I could probably do this joke for at least another 2 years before I like kind of like throw it on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because I'm always trying to show some little perspective of it. It's like, not just, oh, you're saying that joke to be edgy. It's like, I'm saying that joke because it's still relevant.
Yeah, I
get him edgy.
But I think they did wrap the movie. They
did.
They
Okay.
wrapped it in a body bag. So
Joe is going on the mic now.
So, okay. The one thing that I appreciate about your comedy and like these cultural references is that you make a lot of references to music, sometimes very obscure references to music, like Stone
I'm
Temple.
working on that again, by the way. That's a bit I sort of put on the back burner, but continue.
Okay, I like this references to Stone Temple Pilots. I think they're very specific, but I like it because I like Stone Temple Pilots. But
I know what joke you're about to say. I haven't picked that one up in a couple of years.
I'm not gonna say the joke because that's your job. But I'm just saying that like I like the musical references. Is there I don't know. I mean, you might want to tell the joke, but like what like.
If you want to hear the joke, buy a fucking ticket.
Okay.
Not you, Joe. You bought a lot of tickets. I'm talking about this freaking guy right here, because we're breaking the fourth wall, bro.
That's right. You're gonna trip him out. You're gonna freak him out, Nick. You're freaking me out.
You're welcome.
So like, I mean, it's kind of totally unrelated, but like, what kind of music do you like? Completely unrelated to comedy, but like, what kind of music?
I am very, very obscure when it comes to my music, because one day I'm listening to a ton of modern hip hop, maybe a little bit of old school, but then the next day I'm listening to alternative rock and some like metal. Next day I'm listening to like just folk and bluegrass.
Yeah.
It's a weird playlist in my head. I'll be listening to Nirvana one day, and then I'm listening to freaking Legend of Zelda music the next day.
Oh, okay.
I love a video game score.
Yeah, like, do you have like a favorite band?
Favorite bands, let's see. I just saw them recently. I wouldn't say favorite, but one that's been really close to my heart recently. I don't care what you bitches say about our good old Lord and Savior Matty Healy, the 1975s.
I think they're great. Love 1970.
They're very modern, but also have this like 80s synthetic process in the production of their music.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I saw them at Prudential Center back in November, and I don't think they even sold out, but everybody was just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
I saved like $200 because if I saw them at MSG, I would have spent like $400 or $500 for nosebleed tickets. I paid like probably $150 and some change for 2 tickets.
Yeah. No, they're awesome. They're cool. I really like the 1975. It makes me think, now that we're talking about music a little bit, live music.
I'm seeing a lot of concerts this summer.
Yeah? What are you seeing?
It's a weird mix. So my girlfriend got us tickets to see Hardy. She loves country music. I only know a couple of his songs, but it's like I'm just going to probably be shit-faced in the parking lot or something while she enjoys her time. And then I got her tickets to see Hozier.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
She got us tickets to see Avril Lavigne. So it's going to be a very hot summer. I'm going to love it. One thing is, consider I really listen to a lot of hip hop. I haven't been to a hip hop show in a few years, probably pre-COVID. I think I can't remember. Yeah, it was like 2019 at least.
Who are some like the hip hop artists that you like?
Honestly, I don't have a favorite right now. I like to see a new artist pop out like each year. So I'll like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, and Drake, like the iconic guys, but someone on like maybe the lower levels. Who is there? I've been listening to a lot of Kanye again. Like the guys he puts on there, like Ty Dolla $ign, I've always liked him. Because he had an album a few years ago with Jeremiah. There's a lot of these guys that'll have that pop hit from like when we were in high school or going to college, whatever. And then you kind of just don't hear about them until they like do a collab with somebody. I think the last hip hop show I saw was T-Pain. He had like a couple of like, I think what somebody told me, like TikTok stars or TikTok musicians, because they had their clip, they got the clout, but it's like I don't remember who I saw.
Yeah.
I was there for T-Pain.
Who do you think's the most famous person you've ever met?
Most famous person I've ever met. I've met literally dozens and dozens of famous people.
Oh, don't brag.
Don't tell me what you asked. Most famous person I've ever met. Well, recently I met Tim Dillon. You probably saw that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Now, if you don't know comedy at all, like if you're not a big fan of stand-up, you probably don't know who Tim Dillon is at all. But off the top of my head, like A-list level famous. A few years ago, I met Kevin Hart for like 10 seconds.
Wow.
I'm an idiot. I guess I say the story all the time. Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my brother he went through a big career arc. He originally, right out of high school, he wanted to be like a 5-star chef, like work for Gordon Ramsay or Anthony Bourdain or something like that. At his graduation class, all these culinary students are getting their diplomas and they're so happy. And that Samuel L. Jackson's daughter is in the same class.
Oh.
So he's just like getting all the limelight. And it's like, I'm graduating, but the freaking dude from Pulp Fiction and Star Wars is here. So, yeah, I got to, my mom had like the disposable camera. We all took a picture with him, and just out of nowhere, ready? Oh, can Anne get a picture with us? Anne Hathaway is at this graduation.
Whoa.
Shook hands with her, and then she just disappeared. I'm like, wow, I met the Devil Wears Prada. That was in 2007 or 8. I forgot when, but
that's wild. I feel like whenever I meet someone that's like famous or famous adjacent, I always kind of.
I think I have a list in my phone of like the like famous people that I've.
Oh, really? Well, the thing is, I always feel like I get in my head. I almost get like a little bit. I don't know, like kind of. I just question myself. I'm like, did I say the right thing? That kind of thing. But
I try not to fanboy, because I think that was such a weird moment for me as a kid, that like as I met more famous people in the last 5-6 years of my life, it's like treat them. They're human beings too. It's not like they have freaking wings and they're gonna freaking fly away from you right after. But it's like they have other shit to do, like I do.
Yeah, exactly. I guess sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the moment.
I'm trying to look over that list now. Let me see. Do I not have it anymore? Crap. I'll have to make a new list or whatever.
No, it's all right. What I was going to say was, especially when it comes to music and seeing people on stage, I mean, you're talking about 1975, you're talking about seeing Kevin Hart, actually like meeting him briefly. Mm-hmm. Performing in front of an audience, especially an audience as big as, someone that would be performing in front of a concert is, I would imagine for many people is kind of an overwhelming kind of experience. Now, I'm not trying to relate performing as the 1975 in front of a concert full of thousands of people to comedy, but when you're in front of a group of people performing, You're performing just like they're performing. You're performing in a different capacity. Do you ever get the jitters, or do you ever get nervous? Or
I still do.
yeah.
Like I said, with that one city winery show, it's like only a 20, 30 person show, but I felt like shitty the entire show. So like I'm shaking. I'm like, I should just go home in the middle of the show. I don't care about hosting. But then there's like, I did a show of 12 people this past Sunday, and it was a good show. I wasn't really prepared, but I got through my set. They loved it. I've done shows of, like I said, 150. I think that the actual number would be probably 175. Not 1975. 175 people in a room all at once. I think that's the most people I've ever performed for.
Okay.
To each their own. There's one show where I get my jitters, I get my shakes, like, oh shit, what if they don't laugh at this? Who cares if they don't laugh? You got to get through it. It's worse if you embarrass yourself or keep looking at your notes constantly. It's good to keep like a little set list on stage, because that's one thing I actually remember when I was working at Bethel for a little bit. I was like production running and getting people bringing coffee and musical equipment and shit. I remember I had to go to the office and get them a set list, because the musicians would like tape it down on the stage, because not even the musicians remember what song they're going to play next. So I'm like, wait, why am I getting nervous as a comedian doing that? Yeah. One example, like I said, when I did the Mark Norman show, I apologize to the dedicated fan base of the Joe Goodell podcast if I say, like I said a lot, any weird mannerisms like playing with my luscious hair, sipping a seltzer that's already empty, just anything, feel free to leave in the comments. So, Mark Norman's, the show I did, the comic strip, I think that was probably a 150-person show. I was nervous. I'm like, oh my God, there's all these people here. I hope I don't fuck up. Got through my set very well. I got off stage. I'm like, oh, Mark, hey, big fan of yours. He's like, hey, you did pretty good. And I'm like, okay, he did the voice. I thought it was just a fucking act. And then I talked to him for literally only a minute. I was like, I'm just so nervous up there sometimes, man. Like, this is one of the biggest crowds I did in like months, man. And he goes, well, do you want to keep doing crowds like this? And I had to reality check myself, like, yeah, man. It's like, it's just, I don't know why I got overwhelmed. He's like, well, if you want to keep doing it, get used to it. Just not like a dick, but just, you got to change my behavior. It's like, am I going to be like, oh, there's 149 people here today? Oh. Like, I can't get overwhelmed by random shit like that. Because, like I said, I'll be doing a show for 3 people probably the next week.
Kind of a reality check in some ways.
Yeah. And then, with the thing I was going to get to, Mark went up there. He just takes out his phone, throws it on the stool, starts scrolling. And I'm like, wow. He's doing old material, mind you. Stuff I heard from like 2016 and 17 before he really blew up in the past few years. I remember random stuff too. I remember like Pete Davidson, when I saw him before I did stand-up. He was like scrolling through his phone like, all right, let's see what Comedy Central likes and what they don't like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had a buddy that saw Louis C.K. at the Garden Live. He just took out a notebook with him, popped it up. He's like, I don't care. Just enjoy it.
So it's very interesting. You should bring that up, like taking notes, whether it be on your phone or like writing it down on a notepad.
Just bullet pointing, really.
Exactly. Have you ever been, I mean, I'm sure you have, but have you ever been in a moment where you've realized, oh my God, I'm in the middle of a joke right now, and you had to like immediately write it down?
As soon as I walked into this house, I wrote maybe 3 jokes down, Joe.
How dare you?
Oh, it's all the time. And if it's like, honestly, it's not really stealing. It's like, take advantage of it. There's always comics that spitball with each other, like, take it, I don't want it, just write that down before you forget. And I'll do the same thing for people. I'm like, if you want to, take it. And I've seen people that might not even do it on stage. I'm like, oh, dude, you should add this tag to your joke, whatever. They don't do it. And then it's like, hey, you could have filled in that extra 10 seconds. One rule that someone told me very early into my career, it's like, you want to get a laugh in the first 15 seconds.
Okay.
I think the people can be graceful if you're like 20, whatever, but if you talk for an entire minute and you're not getting a laugh, what are you doing up there? So I learned to record yourself and film yourself more. The filming aspect has always gone on my nerves because I would hate the way my face looked. Not saying there's anything wrong with this fucking fine piece of work now, but
It's beautiful. Beautiful
I'm
thing.
gross.
No,
But, no, I remember looking back at one of my tapes from an open mic one time, and the way I smiled at the end of a bit really got on my nerves. So I'm like, okay, my jokes are good. Okay, this one, oh, that needs work. And then I saw my face, the way I said a certain joke, and I went like, I don't know, I went like this, just like, it still sticks to me because like I look like the happy masked salesman from The Legend of Zelda in Majora's Mask.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, I scared the shit out of myself. Like, am I about to commit genocide in Hyrule right after this? I'm like, oh my God. So, yeah, recording myself, timing myself, figuring out where each joke fits and where it's structured correctly. And then after that, look at how you look and then sound doing it. Because I could sound very monotone, or I could sound like, yo, what's going on, guys? And then I could do my entire bit like this or look like this the entire... I can't even do it. I'm so fucking scared of my own well-being, man.
When you're talking about recording, I know recording yourself, you're doing that because you're trying to use it as basically as a tool to learn kind of to dance. But when it comes to this proliferation of people recording themselves and posting it as reels online, TikToks, all that kind of stuff, do you think in a way it cheapens comedy, or do you...
It has in the past year. Continue though. Does it cheapen it, or
do you think it's just like like an evolution of comedy? Like it's the next stage of comedy. Like it's obviously comedy.
I think it's a step down.
Oh, okay.
But I think it'll really shoot things up. I don't know how good it's going to be in the next year or so, especially with an election year coming up. Like, how's comedy going to be like then? Right now, with the whole TikTok generation, I said his name before, Matt Rife, sort of like changed the way reels have been going viral and structured, and how people just, what they think comedy is going to be like, going to a comedy show. You look at a TikTok, it's what, a minute? It's a minute, and it's like, holy shit, it's hilarious. You forget, oh, these comics are going to do 5 or 10 minutes tonight.
Yeah.
So there's people that will come to shows and expect, like, what do you do for work? Oh, that sucks. And it's like, this person probably said a job that makes 3, 5, 10 times the money more than a comic makes. But that's what it's been like. A lot of people are uploading these crowd work bits because they don't want to sacrifice their material yet. Because like I said before, you don't want to hear it too many times before you get sick of this comedian or their set of jokes. You're going to throw it on the back burner. But one thing that I have seen that actually annoys me, people are uploading their 5 or 10 minute tapes in increments to TikTok. So I'm like, that's what I said before. Aren't you burning all your material? Aren't you afraid of someone maybe altering that just a little bit? I'm not saying all comics steal, but it's like there's a lot of parallel thoughts. And it's like, oh, I got the viral clip. It's like, no, I got the viral clip. It's like, but who thought of that original shit first?
Yeah.
You've seen so many clips of, what do you do for work? Or like, what's your name? Or it's like, are you two on a date? Does anybody here on Tinder? You've seen so much of that. So the TikTok shit has definitely changed in the past year. Oh, and the comment sections, they're more brutal than they've ever been. It's like Reddit on crack.
Yeah. So do you make any reels yourself or TikToks? Are you on TikTok?
Make a lot more for Instagram than I do for TikTok. Like, I'll throw it on TikTok, but I feel like such a boomer because like I don't hate the platform, but it's just, I get why adults get so mad at it because so many younger people younger than us, are just like, oh, I saw this TikTok the other day. Like, it's in their vocabulary. They can't say a regular sentence without saying like a social media platform or anything. So I'll throw my stuff on TikTok, but I just don't look back at it. And that's actually a positive thing because then I can be like, oh, look, I had 800 people look at it, or oh shit, I got some mean comment, whatever. But mean comments. Don't look at the comments. I do, though. But I just uploaded a sketch recently. I got 5,000 views on it.
Oh, yeah.
I, on average, get 1,000 views. And you got to think of that organically, because like I have 1,000 followers. I don't know if all my followers look at it. Some of them are probably just like people that haven't activated their account in forever. But the algorithm matters. You got to send, make sure people save, make sure they comment, because friends of friends of friends of friends could all see it. And I collabed with a good dozen people in New York City. We got to 5,000 views, and that means a lot, because shit, will the next one hit 5 or could it hit 10? I'm not sure, but I like the effort I put into this one. The rest is like little stand-up that I get 1,000 views on.
Yeah. Down at Washington Square Park, right? I think, right? That's cool. And then your comedy, I mean, you've done a lot of comedy literally like right down the road from there in Greenwich Village.
I'm like 2 streets from like the mics and shows that I've done that sketch, so.
Yeah, I mean, Washington Square Park, I mean, right there is the Grizzly Pear, too, right? So
I've done the Grizzly Pear Midtown, which is, what's that, 55th or 56th Street, up near Times Square. I've never done the downtown one, which you're referring to.
Oh, Greenwich Village.
Yeah, that one's very, very saturated with comedians. Like, you gotta really up your game if you're gonna get in there.
Really?
Yeah. There's people have been there for like forever, too. Pete Holmes films, I think, scenes crashing there.
I went there. I've been there several times, actually. But one of the times I went there, I think it was, man, I was pretty young. I was probably like, maybe like 15, maybe even 14. And I went there, and they were, what do you call it again? The people that are like, they're out there like barking, I guess
Barkers,
you said,
yeah.
Barkers. They were like, come in here for free comedy. And I was like, okay, cool. So
I saw a free show. That means the show was probably fucking terrible, wasn't it?
Yeah. So basically what happened was I went, obviously you walk in, there's the bar, and then you keep on walking all the way back and
go behind the curtain, down the little metal steps.
Exactly. And so went down there, got actually into like the comedy area, and there was like 3 people in there. And it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. And
yep, that's the dreaded open mic that I will go to soon. Again, I've been to that dozens of times.
Yeah, but I went in there and I sat down, and this guy was awful. I mean, he was bombing, seriously. He was bombing. It was terrible.
Probably me, considering.
But, no, it wasn't you. Anyway, so the guy sees me walk in, and he sees me sit down, whatever. Not a big deal, but his whole thing is he's just like, there was a couple that was in there, and his whole act was basically making fun of this couple that was sitting down. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, whatever. I mean, I guess you can.
Were they also just like a random group of people, or was it like a comedy couple, or?
Completely random group of people that got barked at, and they just went in there too. But so I sat down, and all of a sudden he looks over at me, and he says, "Hey, you." I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" He says, "You're the ugliest motherfucker I've ever seen in my entire life." And I didn't really know how to respond to it. I was like, okay, I don't know. This is like how to take this. And I just walked out of there.
So you better start hitting the gym now, bro.
Yeah, my 14-year-old self definitely my confidence got hit at that age. But like honestly, like looking back at it, I'm like, wow, okay, this guy just like insulted a 14-year-old. I'm like, okay, good comedy. Good comedy. I just left, and we had the 2 other people he was just making fun of. So whatever. I mean, more power to him. But yeah, so I mean, so you're down in the city, you're performing. Obviously, you like perform other Grizzly Pear, but yeah, I mean, so it seems like you're making a lot of pretty good connections down there with the comedy world, right?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people, especially in my DMs, in the past couple months, because I do make a post saying like looking for barkers, or like I'm doing these shows, so I'll have people I swear, they'll write me a college thesis, Joe. They'll be like, hello, Nick. I see that you are creating a compound of shows that you are producing. And I'm just like, send me the fucking tape that I'm not going to watch already, okay? So, no, I mean, I'll watch some content. Like, if you're just yourself and keep it short and sweet. But there's people, like I said, they'll write me paragraphs. Like, I don't have the time to read the freaking Constitution and then watch you talk about your dick for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that are just, and I have to review with certain people as well. Like, I have a friend named Candace. She lives in Brooklyn, and I'll like send her like a list of these messages that I get. Like, who on here is good that you may know, and who on here could possibly murder me in my sleep? And they're like, pick 1, 2, 3. Do not pick that one. So,
I got you.
So, like, yeah, a lot of people in my DM just asking, and then they're just random people. Like, they'll just send the YouTube clip and just they expect it just like they're gonna win the lottery or something. Like, it's a big rate. I'm like, nah, I'm not watching a link because it could be pornography, but no, but you get a lot of randoms and you get a lot of fake people. So that's all I'm trying to say. Yeah, I produce a lot at St. Mark's Comedy Club now. They're collabing with some other comedy clubs and a lot of bigger names, bigger followings. I like the work that I'm doing right now, whether it's a little show or a big show, because it really gets me to see how some of these comics will be. I've dealt with comics that have big egos. I've dealt with people that just do their set and then leave. And I dealt with people that just like show a lot of kindness toward me and they'd like to work with me again. So
it's safe to say that you've experienced a lot when it comes to the whole world of comedy. I mean, you started out up here, then you went down to the city. Now you're going all over. You've been to Boston. You go out to California. You've only been doing it for 5 years, but you've definitely experienced a lot.
A lot of different types of comedy and culture, and just the way I want to see how people just act, not even on stage. Because I've seen enough of that in New York. I'm like, what's the difference in LA or Austin, whatever? Just,
yeah.
It's either to be very professional, it's going to be piss poor. There's no in between. What are we talking about? Goddamn.
No, it's okay. What I was going to say is that you've seen a lot. I mean, you look back on these 5 years. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
No, because I do look back frequently. I'm like, what was I actually doing in 2018? Because I remember when I really full-time started stand-up was November 2018, just at the Tapped Open mic. And then I see the progress since then, where I'm doing that, but then that was the only mic I was doing. Then I have to stretch to mics in Suffern, and then Kingston, Poughkeepsie, and just all this other random stuff over the past few years. Just doing my own shows. So one of my goals I didn't get to share is that I want to produce 15 shows maximum this year. I'm already currently in the process of 7. I just completed 5 already. The 6th show is going to be next month, and the 6th show is at the end of this month. My 7th is in April, so I'm like, shit, I got to start planning my summertime already, because I sort of have like parts of spring settled, and it'll definitely come along the way. I just like to plan ahead.
During the pandemic, there was a lot of outdoor comedy. I mean, you're talking about planning the summer. Did you like performing outdoors as opposed to performing inside? Is there like a particular kind of environment that you prefer to perform in? Maybe an environment that makes you feel more comfortable? What do you have to say to that?
As much as it was convenient, I don't miss outdoor comedy.
Oh, okay.
Because it got very old. A lot of people started to complain more about it, whether they were like people on the street or in another building next door. It was useful because it gave us something to do, but outdoor comedy is weird it's weird because it's like there's so much to observe. They really got to be tight on. There's like freaking grass and trees and like these electronic screens and pillars and just so much random stuff. And then near the comedy club, it's like, yeah, people, what kind of drink are they having? What do you do for work? Just like, you have enough to work with there. I feel like if you're an outside, there's too much noise, like physically, and then just literally just noise, the sound of it. Yeah. There's a lot to that. So, micromanaging.
Yeah.
So you said you want to produce 15 shows this year.
This year, yes. A maximum of 15. I was like, I'll go bananas. I'll try to go for 20, whatever. But in the past year, the last January into late December, I did 11 shows. Just hit the dirty dozen. Just missed the dirty dozen. I want to do at least 12 because that's like if I did a show a month. That's what I was doing when I first started. Like, if I got a show a month, I was happy. Now I'm doing like 30 spots a year. Just whether it's guest spots or feature or headlining. I want to be able to do more than what I was doing when I started. Because one show meant a lot, but then it's like, can't keep on open mics as just my only resort. I always got to stretch out my wings at open mics, but it's like, putting more shows results. Yeah. So as long as people know, oh, this guy's putting on the show at these places and they're going to be there, that's going to be cool. So, so the one thing that I want to talk about so far with the shows, like I said, 5 out of 7 of them are done so far. I have to plan ahead. My next show that I'm producing is going to be March 30th at Quinn's Pins in Middletown. We had 75 people last time. Great friggin' room, great food. And then the 7th production of the year, also in Middletown, is going to be at Aspire Brewing. Brand new. It's only been there since, I think, it's not even a year old. It's only been there since maybe July or August of last year. And they have a showroom. I think it could fit up to a good 100 people. The drinks are great. The environment's great. They got axe throwing and digital golf and stuff. But they gave me a good chance. And I'm going to bring up people from the city. Derek Drescher, he's a buddy of mine. He tells stories, literal prison stories, because he was a formerly incarcerated individual that, after he got back to the real world, pursued comedy, and that was a big stepping stone in his life. And he is just funny mentioning Grizzly Pear before, because this is how I met Derek. Just of all the stories that he's told, and like we've collabed with him, whatever. I went to Grizzly Pear one day, and then I think I just skipped out on the mic, even though I signed up. In the city, you got to pay to play to do the mics, so I paid $5 here, but I didn't pay up the pair. Went to the next mic later in the day, and then I'm just waiting for my spot. It's one of those days where nobody wants to listen to anybody's set at all. But Derek goes up, and he brings up the most energy in the room. I'm like, this guy's fucking good. Looks right at me, and he's like, you. Leg on chair, because I put my leg on the chair like, oh, he's going to pick on me now. So he's like, what's your name, kid? I'm like, Nick. He goes, Nick Bailey, right? I don't know who he was. I'm like, how the fuck does this dude know my name? He's like, I was hosting the Grizzly Pear. You didn't pay the $5, you fucking asshole. And off the bat, I love that dude immediately. Like, how he just takes this dead room into like just something just fucking thrilling that quickly. I'm like, holy God.
Yeah.
I worked with him several times. He's a regular at the Stand on 16th in the city. And like, he's just a great storyteller, a great crowd work comic. And I'm looking forward to that show. That's going to be tight.
Is there a venue that you love performing at?
That I love performing at? It is St. Mark's, because like they had a little restaurant in the front that they moved to Brooklyn, but they treat it like a speakeasy, because you got to go into this part of an apartment building with some businesses upstairs. I get a little in over my head. I'm like, oh my God, these people are here for the show. They're like, where's the yoga studio? And I'm like, it's that way. And the club's right there next to it. But they treat it like a speakeasy. You got to go down this long hallway, got a couple of corners, and then you're just in this dark room with some graffiti on the bricks in the other room. Green room, and kitchen and bar staff are in the back, and it's a small room, probably like, I don't know, I think where this current is probably like just a little bit bigger than the living room, kitchen, all this stuff.
Sure.
We could fit 80 people in there, and I just like that number because it keeps the laughs tight. It keeps the environment just nice and welcoming. Because, like I said, I've done the 100+ or almost 200+ rooms, but like I feel like just under 100 is weird because it really shows that this tight room just is there for comedy. They're not there to see just one person. It's like they're all there huddled together. They're forced to see this entire hour and a half of random people, but it's good there.
Yeah.
I like setting up my shows there. Shout out Alex and Danny Carbagno.
That's awesome. Cool. I'm glad you have a place that you enjoy. Think we're almost getting ready to wrap up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you real quick. I mean, we're talking about goals throughout. You said there's plenty that you brought up.
Mm-hmm.
There any major goals that you really want to achieve? I mean, within the next 10 years, if you had to say?
I want to take over the People's Republic of China very badly because they deserve some civil rights for once in their life.
Hey, amen.
But when goals in comedy are just like my general life.
I think both. I mean, I know you're a photographer as well, so I know you.
I mix that into the business, really. Like, it's under an umbrella. Like, my photography has gotten me more customers in comedy because a lot of people, they just want their headshots and they want, like, that professional pic just to show that they're on stage. But, yeah, someone asked me this recently. They were like, would you rather be a full-time comic or a full-time photographer? And honestly, if I was racking up like 6 figures of photo work, I'd like kick comedy to the side for now. I'm grateful for everything that it's given me, but also it's like, yeah, I guess I do like to follow the money a little bit. I've gotten a lot more photo work this year, and I kind of want to see where it picks up at the end of the year. Yeah. In terms of comedy, though, I want to see myself on TV again, maybe in the next couple of years. Nothing like getting a Comedy Central special, but being able to like put myself out there some way, somehow. And I've met people that have slowly crawled up corporate ladders or just knew someone that knows someone. So I know in the back of my head I'm going to meet the right people that could help me get on radio, get on TV, get on so-and-so's podcast with 1 million views and 1 million followers and this and that. I want to be able to produce shows at the Stand eventually, because that's a club that I haven't performed at, where here's a good one. It's like a high-end dining, but also they have the 2 rooms and a patio optionally for shows. I'm just like standing in there, like I'm not even performing, I'm not watching the show, I'm just hanging out with some friends, and then Ari Shaffir and Bobby Kelly are like standing right next to me. I'm like, holy shit. I don't get to greet them or anything because they're in a rush. They're just like, oh, where do we go? Over here? Okay, cool. So that this last one, another unicorn walks past me, right? I'm at the bar just waiting for Derek. I'm going to see if he's on the show yet or whatever. Just having a drink. They're doing a random pop-up show upstairs. And I see this one guy just like run past me. Not like an emergency or anything. He just like rushes. I'm like, no, guy probably ought to go on his next show. So I meet a dude, and he says, oh, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Nick. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. We're showing the shit. He says, oh, you're from Greenwood Lake? Oh, I'm from Warwood, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, dude, man, there's such a good show in there. I'm like, oh, we're like, who's on it? He's like, just a few people. We just had Jim Gaffigan drop in. I think he just walked past you. I'm like, huh? Jim Gaffigan, literally, he just was like right past me. And I'm like, it wasn't going to stop him anyway and be like, oh my God, it's you. But it would have been cool for like just a little acknowledgments. But it's like, that's a place where I felt like just magic was happening. So that's a goal, to go there eventually. I want to be able to do more road stuff too. A lot of people exaggerate the road now. It's like, I got like 2 shows this week. I'm going on the road. It's like, you're going to fucking Albany. I don't really consider that the road. That's a 2-hour trip. So I would want to be able to do iMessage. The ladies are texting you. So I want to be able to like travel really on the road. I want to go down to like the Carolinas and do comedy, maybe Georgia. I want to be able to do it in the Midwest again. And I networked with only 4 people while I was out in LA. I want to be able to see if I can get in like some LA clubs. Who knows? Maybe there could be a ringer or whatever. I'll just bark whatever and see what I can get out there. But I want to be able to be like the guy that at least did it somewhere that's not here.
Have you ever barked before? Have they ever had to do that?
Bro, I barked on Sunday for the show. There were 12 people. We had 6 ticket sales. We barked 6 people in. Yeah. I barked. The first time I ever barked was for my own show at St. Mark's. That was either November 2022. And it was a show I lost some money on. I didn't really plan it correctly. I just wanted to get a city show in. And so I had 12 people come, but they pre-purchased tickets through the website. I could not bark a ticket outside. I'm just like, come on, guys, come to the comedy show. I don't have any famous people on it, and people just want to go home after the show I was planning was at 6:30 p.m. People want to go home first.
Yep.
They want to go out to the show at 8 o'clock and then 10 o'clock, whatever. People like their nightlife. They don't like going from their 5 p.m. right to the comedy club. It just doesn't work like that.
Well, Nick, I appreciate you being here today.
I appreciate you, Joe.
Yeah, hey.
You're dressed like Arthur from PBS, sort of.
Thanks, man. Take that as a compliment. I just want to thank you for being here. You're a great friend. You're a fantastic comedian. And I mean, most importantly, overall, great guy. And thank you for being on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
And yeah, I mean, definitely everyone out there, go check Nick out live.
Instagram, NVBaileyX, NV_pictures_ New York. Remember the show's Quinn's Pins, Middletown, New York, March 30th. Get tickets on Eventbrite. April 26th, the link's not available yet, but Aspire Brewing, Middletown, New York, April 26th. I'm going to have a lot more stuff in the summer.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
See you, Joe.